When it comes to the superhero genre, very few movies and filmmakers have been as divisive, yet still widely discussed as Zack Snyder and his 2009 movie Watchmen. People either dislike them for missing the point of the comics, or love them despite the differences and for being its own thing. As someone who does not read comics and only consumes the movies, I'm more on the latter side. Recently, due to the oversaturation of superhero content, especially from Marvel, I feel less invested in each installment that comes out. Not only have we seen it all, but we've also seen the same thing multiple times. These days, everything is a sequel, spin-off, or just formulaic. That was when I decided to watch some older superhero movies, the ones that were not obsessed with the idea of shared universes and larger-than-life stakes that actually had long-lasting implications. The world-ending trope is so overdone that most of the time it's impossible to take it seriously. I mean, how often do we see the villain win anyway, especially in a superhero movie, much less a TV show? That is when I realized there are only a handful of these gems, and while everyone and their grandmother knows about the Dark Knight and Avengers Infinity War, I thought we should talk more about Watchmen. Watchmen is one of the few superhero movies with no sequels, prequels, or spin-offs that I know of. There is a TV show called Watchmen by HBO, but I'm not sure if it has any connections to this movie at all. Watchmen, directed by Zack Snyder, came out in 2009, and despite how old this movie is, it still holds up to this day, and dare I say, is even more refreshing to watch now than it was back then. Watchmen is the kind of movie that goes all out in every aspect, from the story itself to the characters, dialogues, and of course, the visuals. In a time when superhero movies and TV shows have very little to offer, even in multiple installments, Watchmen manages to achieve a great story and flesh out its ensemble of complex characters with great dialogues, amazing visuals, entertaining fight sequences, and one of the best openings to any superhero movie, all in one single movie. In this video, I want to talk about such aspects of this movie that really make Watchmen stand out from the crowd of easily digestible, family-friendly, but unfunny comedies. Let's start with the story. Watchmen is an ensemble movie that, despite the number of characters it has to juggle, still manages to flesh them out properly with individual personalities, using flashbacks, backstories, origin stories, and even depiction of their day-to-day lives. As a result of this, several characters in this one movie feel more real than many leading superheroes in their own solo movies.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Yes.
Is that why?
One of the reasons this movie stands out so well is because it's less of a traditional superhero action-adventure movie and more of a noir thriller mystery. Unlike most ensemble films, where the main superhero team is either forming or has already formed for a while, in Watchmen's universe, the team has been retired for years, and for good reasons. Dr. Manhattan joining the team pretty much makes the other members obsolete in the long run. After all, why have Black Widow and Hawkeye in a team if you have Superman or Wonder Woman? Dr. Manhattan is so powerful that he can single-handedly solve many of their problems in a matter of seconds. The teammates at that point are more useful for moral support than actual practical input. In the movie, before we're even introduced to Dr. Manhattan, we get scenes of people talking about him and his abilities, which gives his godlike character a proper build-up. He's a character with lots of abilities, yet even the things he can't do, like being unable to see the future temporarily, acts as world-building by showing us his limitations, all the while establishing that a nuclear war is a strong possibility in the near future.
My future is blocked. I cannot see it clearly.
Caused by what?
In all likelihood, nuclear holocaust.
While Manhattan is working for the government, other retired superheroes are busy living their lives and doing jobs like regular people, all except one. Rorschach is a vigilante and the only one who actively goes out at night to fight the crime, even though it's illegal.
Attempted rape, mugging, both. Sometimes the night is generous to me.
Dad, aka Night Owl, is a journalist hiding in plain sight, while Laurie Jupiter, aka Silk Spectre, is only valuable to the government because she is Dr. Manhattan's girlfriend. Then we have Adrian White, aka Ozymandias, who is a businessman and the only non-superpowered individual who used his superhero status to his benefit, at least financially.
Privately, I'm worth more than all of your corporations combined. I can buy and sell you 3 times over, which is something you should factor into your decision should you choose to make our disagreement public.
One of the main members of this team is the comedian, the one whose death starts the movie's main storyline.
And he always thought he'd get the last laugh.
Throughout this whodunit, we see different superheroes who used to work with the comedian attend his funeral. This is when we get some of the flashbacks regarding the comedian and how each person remembers him. This is one more thing that I love in Watchmen that separates it from other movies, including the non-superhero ones. Whenever a character's death takes place early on in a movie, most of the time, the rest of the story tries to make us care for the character to really feel their loss. In Watchmen, however, it's the other way around. Each flashback shows him being an awful person and makes us hate the comedian more. He goes from a glorified a war hero with many medals and a picture with the president to a rapist and a psychopath mass murderer who shot a pregnant woman in her face point blank. Yet, just when you think he's a surface level bad guy with no depth, somehow, by the end of the movie, he still comes off as a more layered character. Just when you think this guy is incapable of any empathy or human emotions, we get a scene of him weeping like a child when he finds out about the villain's plans for genocide. Because of his actions, he's all alone, to the point the only person he can open up to is his former nemesis.
I done some bad things. I did bad things to women. I shot kids. But that was fucking war. I never done anything like this. The truth is, you're the closest thing to a friend I got. What the fuck does that say? Oh, your name was on the list. Janie. Whatever the fuck her name is. Manhattan's old girl. Mother, forgive me.
Watchmen is full of layered scenes like this that effortlessly juggle character development with world building, all the while keeping up the main mystery. One of the major things that really make this whole movie engaging, despite its 3-hour runtime, is the characters. Rorschach, Night Owl, Silk Spectre, and Dr. Manhattan are the main focus of the movie, and all 4 of them stand out in their own way. Rorschach is introduced as the main point of view character who is investigating the case and narrating the whole story. Jack Earl Haley gives an Oscar-level performance as this character. Rorschach is someone who's had a rough childhood, to put it mildly.
I should have had that abortion.
He's the kind of character who looks so cool and badass until you realize he also sees things in black and white and is unwilling to compromise his beliefs, even if it means the end of him, which leads to him believing in some very messed up things.
Silhouette. Murdered. A victim of her own indecent lifestyle.
Regardless of his flaws, he is a very engaging character who, despite his size, carries a powerful punch. Speaking of powerful, Dr. Manhattan is, in my opinion, one of the most fascinating characters ever put to film, regardless of any genre. He is capable of bending things to his will like few can. He can change matter, create life, multiply, shapeshift, teleport, telekinesis, and my personal favorite, he can see the future, past, and present, and live them simultaneously from more than one perspective. The only other character I know who toys with time and memories the way Dr. Manhattan can is Eren from Attack on Titan. Due to its overpowering and overwhelming complexity, this kind of ability is very hard to pull off in stories, yet Watchmen manages to do it without many problems. One of the ways the movie achieves this is by not putting it in the center until it serves the story organically. Throughout the movie, the use of his powers is less of a showcase of his abilities and more of a character trait. When he's reversing time, it's to fix the monitor he was using. When he's replicated himself, it's to multitask personal and professional life. When he grows in size, it's to take a more hands-on approach on matters that require force. When he's using telekinesis, it's to better structure things that could take more time and effort otherwise. When he uses telepathy, it's to explore the minds of other characters and reveal new details that would either further the plot or flesh out the character. And finally, when he travels from one place to another, it's to drop by someone or be at a certain place for valid reasons. Either it's a meeting or he's refreshing his mind on Mars. The point I'm trying to make here is that he almost never uses his power just for the sake of using them. There is almost always some reasoning behind it. Dr. Manhattan is capable of a lot of supernatural abilities, but the most fascinating thing about him, at least to me, is that he used to be, and to an extent still is, a human. Just like the comedian, his story is about a person who became less and less of a human as time went on, only to find humanity when it was too late. He is so powerful that he can't possibly want any more power. He's capable of creating life itself, so there's little else he'll need money for. Immortality could be a blessing or a curse. For Dr. Manhattan, it's a bit of both. His ability to love and connect with humans fades away little by little, to the point he sees reversing time to fix a TV more important than using the same powers to save a pregnant woman.
She was pregnant, and you gunned her down.
That's right. You know what? You watched me. You could have turned the gun into steam, the bullets into mercury, the bottle into goddamn snowflakes, but you didn't, did you? You really don't give a damn about human beings.
Comedian was a horrible person, but in this scene, even he had a point.
You're drifting out of touch, Doc. God help us all.
I don't think there is a God. And if there is, I'm nothing like him.
I particularly loved the small detail during one of the flashbacks when Dr. Manhattan seems to have some sense of humor about him.
I told you you wouldn't be the only one dressed up.
But then, in current times, he's devoid of any basic emotion, let alone humor. The only time he shows emotions is when he was ambushed by reporters. Or when he was talking to Laurie about her father being the comedian, which is a jaw-dropping twist of its own, by the way, that organically impacts the story. A godlike being capable of calculating humans into stats on a paper is given a new way to approach the beauty and unpredictability of life, of humanity, when he sees how complex certain people can be.
That a symbolic clock is as nourishing to the intellect as a photograph of oxygen to a drowning man. A live human body and a deceased human body have the same number of particles. Structurally, there's no difference. I've longed to witness such an event, and yet I neglect that. In human coupling, millions upon millions of cells compete to create life for generation after generation, until, finally, your mother loves a man, a comedian, a man she has every reason to hate, and out of that contradiction against unfathomable odds, it's you that emerged to distill so specific a form from all that chaos. It's like turning air into gold. A miracle.
Silk Spectre, also known as Laurie, is Dr. Manhattan's companion, whose job is basically being the girlfriend of the most powerful thing on the planet. Her character is by far the least interesting of the group. Having said that, she's not bad by any means. She's one of the few normal people who just wants to take a break from everything. In a world populated by a godlike being, a deranged psychopath, a closed-minded sociopath, and countries at the brink of nuclear annihilation, it's no wonder Laurie wanted to escape from it all. Night Owl is the most normal man in the group, and hence why Silk Spectre was attracted to him. These two are the only ones who bring some warmth and brightness in this dark, crazy world. Having said that, they do seem to have a wild side to themselves. From the alleyway fight to especially the fire rescue, these scenes show how much they miss their good old crime-fighting days. At the end of the line, there's one more character who plays a major role in the story, the person who killed the comedian and planned the nuclear attack. Ozymandias is one of those rare villains who manages to win at the end. He delivers thought-provoking arguments and presents a moral dilemma that challenges both the people in the movie and the ones watching it. And he manages to achieve all this despite his limited screen time. He is one of those villains that really left his mark by establishing himself as both a badass and a smart person.
New York, Los Angeles, Moscow, Hong Kong, disintegrated in an instant.
Killing millions.
To save billions.
And he was right. His plan worked and the war did end.
Every country in the world are holding hands now, singing songs about peace and love.
The whole idea of him triggering a nuclear explosion worked because, and this is just my opinion, it was America's own most valuable weapon against them. If it was a different country's weapon, America would be starting the war, not ending it. Plus, who's to say that an anonymous attack won't still lead them to think it was one of their enemies being sneaky? By making the attack an American weapon, it forces America to not only call for peace, since they can't handle being at war at the moment, but also ask for allies, since they no longer have the weapons to fight back. Given how America isn't even the only country being attacked, gives more reason for other countries to join in as well. They already lost millions of people, and who knows when the next attack could be and where. Due to America's new weakened state and the fact that they have the most information on Dr. Manhattan and his abilities than any other country, making them at least a bit valuable in the fight against him, there's no point in war, just risks. And hence the enemy countries actually unite to help each other and to possibly make sure that America will remember who actually asked for help for a long time.
Millions of lives were suddenly ended in an act of evil perpetrated by Dr. Manhattan himself. Putting aside our past differences, we have both pledged to unite against this common enemy, to defend the human race and all that is good and just in our world. God bless us all.
The whole world, and when I say world, I actually mean the world and not just America, knows how desperate America is at this point, since their own most powerful proud weapon has turned against them, leaving it without its guardian. Now that the other countries are mostly fine and America is in actual danger without enough strong defenses, it's forced to surrender its position as a powerhouse.
Never compromise. Not even in the face of Armageddon.
Without condoning or condemning. I understand.
Do it!
As if the characters aren't fleshed out enough already with their journeys, the movie also have them deliver some of the best lines ever.
Suddenly you discover humanity. Convenient. If you'd cared from the start, none of this would have happened.
I can change almost anything, but I can't change human nature.
The streets are extended gutters, and the gutters are full of blood. And when the drains finally scab over, all the vermin will drown. The accumulated filth of all their sex and murder will foam up around their waists, and all the whores and politicians will look up and shout, "Save us." And I'll whisper, "No."
What happened to the American dream? What happened to the American dream? It came true. You're looking at it.
I hope you're ready, hero.
When you are.
Is it a compromise to want to make you well?
There are other men in here with behavior more extreme than mine, Doctor. Of course, they're not famous.
I confess. I kidnapped her. I killed her. Arrest me.
Men get arrested. Dogs get put down. See, Doctor, God didn't kill that little girl. Fate didn't butcher her. Destiny didn't feed her to those dogs. God doesn't make the world this way. We do. None of you seem to understand. I'm not locked in here with you.
Wait, that's it! You're locked in here with me!
Your turn, Doctor. Tell me, what do you see?
I have walked across the surface of the sun. I have witnessed events so tiny and so fast, they can hardly be said to have occurred at all. But you, Adrian, you're just a man. The world's smartest man poses no more threat to me than does its smartest termite.
I miss the times when dialogues were just as exciting and goosebump-inducing as actual action scenes. Speaking of which, the action in Watchmen is mainly hand-to-hand, and it's awesome. Unlike some other action movies that hide the fights using shaky cam, Watchmen uses speed ramps, and I must say, I really think that this should have been the more popular method for action. I hate shaky cam most of the time. I personally prefer cleaner yet faster action with more clarity. Watchmen has at least 4 fight scenes like this, and all 4 of them were amazing. I especially love how Night Owl, Silk Spectre, and Rorschach are shown to be such intimidating fighters who beat the shit out of criminals like they're nothing, only to then have Ozymandias wipe the floor with them without breaking a sweat. I love it when the villain is an actual threat and not someone who can easily be disposed of. Ozymandias is someone who's looking at the bigger picture. He wants to save the whole forest, while the other heroes, especially Rorschach, are more focused on individual trees.
If you've heard her, I'll...
Dan? Grow up.
Basically, what I'm trying to say is that Ozymandias is a great villain who should have gotten more screen time.
The world will survive, and it deserves more than you've been able to provide. I'm not a comic book villain. Do you seriously think I'd explain my masterstroke to you if there were even the slightest possibility you could affect the outcome?
One more thing that Watchmen does well is the violence. It's so over the top and at times campy that it reminded me of some Tarantino movies like Django Unchained and Kill Bill.
Whole neighborhood! I'll break your neck!
I love these kinds of overly stylized violence, and it's the kind of violence that perfectly fits within the superhero genre. Unfortunately, most superhero movies are rated PG-13, so the violence is limited to only a handful of movies like Deadpool, Logan, Dredd, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Not only that, but the action and violence in this movie fits in organically and never feels like action just for the sake of it. Comedian's death starts the story. His insanity during war explores the theme of people losing humanity when given too much power. Rorschach's arrest takes place after the disqualification of a possible suspect. His fight with the inmates establishes his character's will. His breaking point with the missing child establishes how no one in this world stays soft for long, and how criminals plead insanity to flee harsh punishments. Night Owl's breaking point when his mentor is killed showcases how even the most level-headed individuals can come close to getting caught up with rage. From the old Night Owl reliving his glory days one last time before getting beaten to death, implying how the mighty have fallen, disregarded, to the final fight with Ozymandias, where he is established as someone the heroes were never prepared for, all serve a purpose for the characters and in the narrative. Every action either has a direct emotional or practical reason to exist. The only action scene that I initially thought was unnecessary was the alleyway fight, and even then I think it exists to show how, despite putting on a more normal facade, both Night Owl and a Silk Spectre enjoy getting physical, in more ways than one.
Breaking into a maximum security prison is no different than putting out a fire.
Yeah, you're right. It'll be more fun.
Given how Zack Snyder is the director, it's not a surprise that this movie is absolutely gorgeous. I'm not sure if it's a controversial take or not, but I think out of all the Snyder DC movies, Watchmen is by far the most visually stunning, with great shots, amazing cinematography, and vibrant colors that create an engaging atmosphere, all the while fleshing out the world. Some of my favorite shots include when Rorschach vanished in the shadows, when Comedian is thrown off the building, the Apocalypse Now reference, every time Rorschach's mask changes patterns to match his emotions, the smiley face close-ups, the Crystal Palace on Mars, Mars, and especially when Dr. Manhattan is born. As a matter of fact, whenever Dr. Manhattan is on screen, he's so magnetic to watch. His glowing body looks both painted and CGI at the same time, but in a good way, unlike the genie from Aladdin, or Skrulls from Captain Marvel, or Ronan from Guardians of the Galaxy, etc. The acting from everyone is perfect, but Rorschach and Dr. Manhattan stand out from the group for good reasons. They're playing complex, larger-than-life characters that barely even exist in modern superhero movies, and both actors deliver phenomenal performances. This movie seriously has some of the best performances in all of superhero genre, with only a few exceptions. In conclusion, Watchmen is a deep and thought-provoking movie that we don't get enough of these days.
Violent lives ending violently. Humans are savage in nature. Blake saw society's true face. Chose to be a parody of it.
Watchmen is challenging the characters and their morality and ethics in ways modern superhero movies won't dare to. And the way this superhero story is intercut and seamlessly connected with the politics of real-life war is amazing. These days, they try to put politics in fiction. Watchmen, on the other hand, put the fiction in politics, and it did so far more seamlessly without relying on cheap gimmicks like lazy drawn-out lectures and forced jokes.
What do you expect? The comedian's dead.
Watchmen is a movie that I didn't really like all that much at first, but it grew on me over the years, and is one of the few movies that really gets better with each rewatch. It went from an average 6 to then a good 7 out of 10 during my first watch, to now being in my top 3 favorite superhero movies of all time with a 9 out of 10. That's it for now, guys, and I hope you have a great day. Is there some other movie or movies that you'd like for me to talk about? If so, leave a comment. And if you're in mood for some dark psychological thriller, check out my novel, New Address. To know more about the story, pause the video. If you'd like to read the novel, click the link in the description. If you're unsure which online store to get my book from, try either Smashwords, Apple Books, or Kobo. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye.
What are you waiting for?